opportunities and just criminal activities. But there were people dying in the streets of Iran ready to overthrow that government, the worst government in the world, and we couldn't even come out and say we're behind you? Of course not, because we know what side he's on. I would basically say, man, if you have a freedom movement in the streets of people fighting for their freedom against these tyrants, I would say the United States of America is the arsenal of democracy, and we're the champions of freedom. And we are no longer going to sit here and tolerate these regimes that do nothing but breed threats to our national security. Iranians getting a nuclear weapon is a threat to our national security. I am not talking about sending American troops to be the policemen of the world and to go over there and get killed for people that don't give a damn. I am not talking about that at all. But I am talking about applying the kind of pressure that only these murdering predator bastards understand, and that is force. And if you're prepared to use force against these people, you generally don't have to use force against these people. Somebody just said didn't work in Vietnam. Tim Morris, USA, said didn't work in Vietnam. Let me tell you what I do know about Vietnam, Tim. When you are fighting a war for 11 years and you tell your naval pilots that as they ingress into a target using the same route that they've flown every single time for the last 4 years at the exact same time of day, and when you tell Navy pilots coming ashore from aircraft carriers that as they fly over Da Nang Harbor and look down at the SAM missiles being unloaded from Russian freighters that are going to shoot them down next week, and you tell them that they're not allowed to go and hit those targets, and you tell them that they have to fly the same routes the same time every day, when you tell people who are flying jets who don't have guns on them, who only have air-to-air missiles, that the rules of engagement say that no matter that we've seen these planes take off from radar, fly from North Vietnam to intercept our guys, when you say the rules of engagement are we have to have a visual identification on that target and see the red stars on its wings before we can take a shot, then I don't particularly know if I want to see that the Vietnam War was exactly an example of how to fight smart. Vietnam War was everything exactly the opposite of what I'm talking about, putting great, brave men on the ground without any kind of a sense of a mission, any kind of a sense of objective, tying both hands behind their backs and then telling them to sit out there in the jungles for 11 years and get killed. Nonsense. Nonsense. That war was the clearest example I have ever seen of a victory that was thrown away, because every single time Lyndon Johnson would hit a North Vietnamese target to the degree where it hurt them, they started talking, and then the instant he would do that, he'd say a ceasefire. He'd try to show him how swell we were, what swell guys we were. You know, this war was over when Nixon started bombing Hanoi. Once he started bombing Hanoi, they refused to talk peace for 11 years, and Nixon put bombers over Hanoi with B-52s, and they were at the table like that. Like that. Creighton Abrams had a plan to take existing forces in theater, no extra troops, no extra nothing. This was in the last 6 months of the war before we got out of there. And he said, I have enough troops on the ground now so that instead of constantly wandering around in the jungles and patrols and getting into this war of attrition and body counts and all of this nonsense, all of this, we're going to trade American boys for Vietnamese kids. Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? That's just absolutely insane. Abrams basically said in the last couple of months of that war, he said, I've got enough forces in theater now that I could take an armored column. We would go right up the Ho Chi Minh Trail. We'd just go up the trail. We'd go up the trail with an armored column. We'd put our air power where we needed it, which is in close air support of this thing, and we would drive this column to the center of Hanoi, and from the center of Hanoi, then we'd start having a little discussion about peace. I absolutely believe that would have worked. Absolutely. Absolutely believe that would have worked. We never, ever, ever fought that war. And the same for Korea, by the way.